The ruling party candidate wins in Zambia, but the opposition candidate is crying foul. Somalia aims to improve the lives of children. And Michelle Obama attracts criticism on social media for what she wasn't wearing in Saudi Arabia. Africa 54 starts right now.
Hello and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. In one of the worst disasters to hit the region in years, massive flooding in southern Africa is responsible for the deaths of at least 300 people in Malawi, Mozambique, and the island nation of Madagascar. Nearly 1 million people have been affected by the floods that have burst riverbanks, flooding vast areas and destroying homes, bridges, and crops. About 250,000 people have been forced to leave their homes and seek shelter elsewhere. Malawi, one of the poorest countries in the world, has been hardest hit with at least 200 people confirmed death and 121,000 displaced. Aid agencies are racing to reach tens of thousands of people displaced by the flooding, even as more heavy rain is forecast in the coming days. Well, the United Nations Security Council and participants in a UN-sponsored peace talks for Libya are condemning an attack Tuesday at a luxury hotel in Tripoli that killed at least 9 people. Gunmen stormed the Corinthia hotel after blowing up a vehicle and firing on staff members. The siege ended on the hotel's 24th floor when the gunmen blew themselves up after a standoff with the security forces. A Security Council statement urged all parties in Libya to take part in efforts to address the political and security crisis facing the country, which has struggled for stability since the 2011 ouster of leader Muammar Gaddafi. After 2 days of elaborate and constructive peace talks in Geneva, the UN mission in Libya vowed that such attacks will not derail the process of working towards a unity government. A group calling itself the Tripoli Province of the Islamic State claimed responsibility in an online statement, calling it retaliation for the 2013 capture of Abu Anas al-Libi by U.S. forces. Al-Libi was suspected in the 1998 al-Qaeda bombings of U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania. He died earlier this month in a U.S. prison while awaiting trial. Well, Zambia's ruling party candidate Edgar Lungu secured a narrow victory in last week's presidential election, but the opposition claims the election was stolen. Independent observers say the ballot was fair and credible. VOA's Pondiho has more.
Patriotic Front Sir Edgar Lungu was sworn in as Zambia's new president Sunday. He garnered 48% of the vote against his closest rival Hakainde Hichilema of the United Party for National Development, who received nearly 47% of the vote.
And maintain the constitution and laws of Zambia, and that I will dedicate my abilities to service and welfare.
Speaking after being sworn in at a colorful ceremony at the National Heroes Stadium, Lungu says his government policies will remain consistent and predictable.
Our country will continue to maintain and even improve in a conducive environment for investors, both local and external. Our policies will be underpinned by consistency and predictability. Recently, we have restructured the revenue system for the mining industry, from a corporate profit-based tax to a new royalty one, which is simple and the final tax. Government's desire to ensure companies pay the right taxes will continue.
The election was called after former President Michael Sata died suddenly last October. Another election is scheduled for late next year when Sata's term had been due to end. Lungu will have little time to turn around a spurting economy in one of Africa's most promising frontier markets. The United Nations has called for post-election unity. Turnout for the election was just 32% as heavy rains disrupted voting across much of the country. Observers say the ballot was conducted in a fair manner. In recent years, Zambia has enjoyed political stability and has annual income economic growth rates of 7%. The World Bank now classifies it as a lower middle income nation rather than low income. meaning its gross national income per person has risen above $1,000. But Africa's second largest copper producer, home to 14.5 million people, is still struggling with poverty and high unemployment.
I am very happy that it's new president of Zambia. I know he will do great things for us.
I really accept my presidency, who's supposed to be in. Actually, it's already in. So, I'm just congratulating Ed Kalonzo to be a president.
The Patriotic Front has led Zambia since winning an election in 2011. That vote ended the 20-year rule of the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy Party. The new government is vowing to support small-scale farmers and create jobs to fight poverty, and the enactment of a new constitution as top priority. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, Washington.
Well, Somalia's president has signed into law a new convention on the rights of the child. Children in the East African nation continue to face daily challenges posed by conflict, displacement, malnutrition and disease. 1 in 7 die before reaching the age of 5, and fewer than half of them attend school. Abdulaziz Bilo reports from Mogadishu on what, if anything, this new law will do to help improve the lives of the youngest Somalis.
Somali President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud officially ratified the Convention on the Rights of Children at a ceremony held in a Mogadishu school. Somalia is the 195th state party to sign the document.
We want our children to be leaders who can take on national and international responsibilities. Some of the children in front of me today will be among the leaders that take responsibility for the Somali nation and the world as well.
The convention articulates a set of universal rights to protect children. Among them is right to life, survival and development. Decades of conflict in the East African nation have raised its child and maternal mortality rates to among the worst in the world. But with the recent signing, the United Nations Children's Fund has expressed hope that in the near future, Somalia's government will be in a position to protect its own children.
UNICEF looks forward to working with the government to implement this convention and work towards achieving key results on the protection of children's rights within the next 2 years. The next 2 years are actually key, because as the government will be submitting the first progress report on the implementation of this convention.
According to UN figures, 1 in 7 Somali children die before reaching the age of 5, mostly from preventable illnesses, and only 4 in 10 children are in school. Human rights activists in Mogadishu welcomed the signing as a positive step. Amina Arale of the Somali Women Development Center says the Somali government will now be held accountable for any violation against children.
It's the responsibility of the government to ensure the rights of the children are protected. By signing the agreement, the government can be held accountable on any crime committed on children at the courts. The Somali children have a golden opportunity and will have the rights protected.
Although implementing the accord will take time, the government says it will now work on drafting and adopting child-friendly policies and systems, implement measures to boost child survival, development, participation and protection, and provide regular reports on its progress to the UN's Committee on the Rights of the Child. Abdulaziz Bilo for VOA News, Mogadishu.
Well, the United Nations agency UNICEF is working to identify out-of-school marginalized children in Somalia and providing them with access to quality primary education. For more insight, we are joined live via Skype from Nairobi, Kenya, by Shima Sen Gupta, Chief Child Protection Program, UNICEF Somalia. Ms. Gupta, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you.
Now, this is a very exciting development in Somalia, but just share with us what this means to you, the work you do, particularly as a child protection person there.
Actually, it's a big step. It's a step towards ensuring that children can access their rights. In Somalia, in the last year, we've been working with the new government The government has prioritized rule of law and setting up legislation and frameworks, in general to improve the rule of law in the country. Within this, access to justice for children, ensuring that children can access their rights through the appropriate legislative frameworks, systems, and service provision has been our priority. So this actually makes it so much easier because now there is a commitment which everybody understands in government and in all the regions, and it makes it so much easier for us to work in developing that framework for the children.
Now we know that the government may make this commitment, but one of the major threats against children and other Somalis is actually the militant group Al-Shabaab. So how does that come into play?
I think, the group has been there and the government is working towards, handling that issue and providing security for its citizens. For us, that's really where we come in, looking at the justice sector, looking at the rule of law institutions, working with them, trying to put the frameworks in place while the government works with AMISOM to ensure safety and security and to deal with the group.
Now, we know that one of the things UNICEF is trying to do is to help children go to school. How do you make them feel comfortable and safe to walk to school, many times long distances?
The truth of it is we have areas in Somalia which are some more accessible than the others, in the sense that some have really been cleared of Al-Shabaab presence, and those are safer areas for children. If you look at the statistics of IDPs, they move to safer areas. And one of the things we ensure is that in these areas, there are schools that children can go to safely, that they can access, and actually also bringing them back for the displaced people and the displaced population, going out to them, doing the outreach and ensuring that they bring the children back to school is one of our priorities.
Well, Shima, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you.
Well, Shima Sengupta is Chief Child Protection Program in Somalia for UNICEF. Well, now, U.S. President Barack Obama traveled to Saudi Arabia on Tuesday to pay his respects following last week's death of 90-year-old Saudi King Abdullah. So Obama made a brief stop in the capital, Riyadh, while leading a 30-member delegation that included officials and lawmakers, including House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi, Republican Senator John McCain, and former U.S. Secretaries of State James Baker and Condoleezza Rice. While in Riyadh, President Obama and new Saudi King Salman bin Abdulaziz held their first formal talks. A U.S. official says the two leaders discussed a variety of Middle East security issues and stability on the oil market. The official says the president also raised the topic of human rights in Saudi Arabia. Well, Dagmar Liblova was only 14 when she arrived at the notorious Nazi camp as Auschwitz in December 1943, along with her entire Czech Jewish family. All of them were to die there, but she was able to leave after several months due to a bureaucratic mix-up which saved her life. Now 85, with 3 children and 6 grandchildren, she says she has a feeling of victory. Raymond Fallon tells us more.
Auschwitz is still a chilling place. It was purpose-built for mass murder, and more than 1 million people died here. But the survivors can bear witness to what happened. Among them, Dagmar Liblova, pictured here with her mother and sister, who both perished in the camp.
Well, I was almost 15, and I couldn't just imagine that everything would be over, that I would never see anything else than the blocks and then the wire, and so I would never in my life see a tree or a piece of grass.
Dagmar had every reason to think that she too would end in the Auschwitz crematorium. Shortly after she arrived, her uncle, aunt and cousin were all killed in the gas chambers. She spent her days helping her mother empty the latrines. It was grim work on an empty stomach.
And the food was very simple. It was in the morning, which was called coffee. It was a sort of warm liquid. And then during the day, there was a portion of soup. And then a piece of bread in the evening.
But Dagmar was about to be saved by an incredible stroke of luck. The Nazis made a list of workers aged 16 to 40 to undertake war work in Germany. Dagmar's name was on it. Her date of birth should have been written 1929, but instead it said 1925.
But because this mistake, that somebody wrote a 5 instead of a 9, saved my life. Because there was a train standing, and when we stepped in the train, and then the train moved, so we didn't believe it that we are leaving. We couldn't believe it that we are really leaving Auschwitz.
Like so many others, Dagmar's family all died here. Dagmar spent the rest of the war working in Hamburg. Only once, 20 years ago, did she return. She won't come back again.
Auschwitz is a cemetery of all my parents, my sister, almost all relatives. But everything comes back again, and no, I wouldn't go there anymore. It's too hard.
But Dagmar, at home surrounded by books and photos, is not bitter. Life, she feels, has triumphed.
Now when I see my children and grandchildren, I always now have the feeling that it's a victory. Because I was not supposed to be here.
Auschwitz is now a museum, a reminder of the inhuman cruelty perpetrated by the Nazis. But Dagmar's life is a testament to the resilience and power of the human spirit.
Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. Check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, a new biogas system changes lives in Rwanda. Stay with us.
I am Sheikh Sali, host and senior editor of VOA's international call-in talk show, Straight Talk Africa.
Today we'll examine the tobacco industry.
We pretty much touch on anything that you can think of. Politics, health issues, human rights issues, you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. A very, very rare and unique opportunity to interact with their leaders.
Welcome back. In Rwanda, cows are a status symbol, but what they leave behind is devastating for the environment. What methane released from cow dung is 22 times more harmful than carbon dioxide. But this very same methane can also be used for good. As this report from the International Fund for Agricultural Development explains, a new African invention uses local materials to create cheap, portable and simple biogas digesters. This not only turns the dung into gas for cooking, but also changes people's lives.
In Rwanda, cows are status symbols, but what they leave behind is one of the principal causes of global warming. In fact, methane released from cow dung is 22 times more harmful than carbon dioxide. But this very same methane can also be used for good. A new African invention is cheaply and simply turning this dung into gas for cooking, and at the same time, changing people's lives. 3 years ago, Pacifique Musabimana was left an orphan. 25 years old, with 6 brothers and sisters, as well as her own 3-year-old child to look after, she was finding it impossible to cope.
Life was harsh. I had to farm, provide for the whole family, and make sure the children attended school. It was all too much for me.
But everything changed for her when the UN's International Fund for Agricultural Development, or IFAD, joined forces with the Rwandan government to promote the use of clean, renewable energy in the country. Pacifique was selected as one of over 100 poor farmers to try out a new system called Flexi Biogas, designed by Kenyan company Biogas International. These simple, economical and portable systems are particularly suitable for remote rural areas. They can be transported by bike or donkey, and installation takes just a few hours, as IFAD's renewable energy officer John Delacroix explains.
It's very easy. With one car and this flexi biogas, which is easy to install, to repair and maintain, you get enough gas for cooking and the bioslurry, which is a good fertilizer for your farm.
Now, every day, Pacifique collects dung to feed her digester, a 6-metre-long PVC sack. Inside, organic waste heats up, ferments and releases methane gas, which is piped directly to her kitchen. From the other end comes a potent organic fertilizer, which improves soil fertility without the use of chemicals. Pacifique uses what she needs for her vegetable patch and sells the rest. She is not only reducing damage to the atmosphere, but also saving time and money. She used to spend about 2 hours a day looking for firewood. Now she has more time for her chores, and a smoke-free kitchen makes cooking a healthier activity. With an average annual consumption of 1 ton of wood per person, cooking with biogas greatly reduces deforestation, soil erosion and gas emissions. As part of the package to promote clean energy, Pacifique also received a solar panel, and this gave her an idea of how she could raise some cash.
I realized I could transform this electricity to something profitable. So I bought a converter and a kit to charge people's phones. So now I can say having electricity is very beneficial. With electric light, the children can study in the evening, and thanks to the money I make charging phones, I can buy them school materials as well as soap for clothes and other items.
With the success of the first test of the Flexi Biogas system, a further 200 will be distributed in 2015, with a plan to manufacture them locally, creating much-needed jobs while also promoting renewable energy solutions for a cleaner future.
Well, that report was from the International Fund for Agricultural Development, a UN agency. Now to the United States, where Winter Storm Juno is, as it's been called, dumped as much as 60 centimeters of snow on parts of the northeast U.S. But it failed to live up to its historic billing. VOA's William Gallo reports officials there are defending their decision to effectively shut the city down ahead of the weaker-than-expected storm.
New Yorkers woke up Tuesday to a significant amount of snowfall. But nowhere near the historic levels predicted by forecasters. In Manhattan's largely deserted Times Square, residents were underwhelmed.
Turned out to be nothing. I mean, it's some accumulation, but not what you expected it to be.
I was expecting 2 feet, and it's only like a couple of inches, so they're making a big deal out of it. Nothing. So I don't think it was that bad.
Ahead of the storm, officials took the unusual step of shutting down rail and subway lines, and even imposed a travel ban on roads. New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo on Tuesday defended that decision, saying it was better to be safe than sorry.
I would rather, if there's a lean one way or the other, if you will, lean towards safety, because I've seen the consequences the other way, and it gets very frightening very quickly. And I've seen people put in extraordinarily dangerous situations. And we've had people die in storms.
Although the storm largely spared New York, other parts of the northeast United States were not so lucky, receiving as much as 60 centimeters of snow, along with strong winds. Many areas there remained under a blizzard warning on Tuesday. William Gallo, VOA News, Washington.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Michelle Obama causes an uproar on social media. We'll tell you why after the break. We'll be right back.
I don't see anyone of them doing miracle or changing my life, because we have been suffering this thing for donkey years.
Mesdames, Messieurs, merci donc d'être venus.
Nous regrettons vivement les victimes d'aujourd'hui et présentons aux familles.
This should be a bit of very good news for Ghana going forward.
We are not happy because our team is not winning, it's losing now.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. The U.S. First Lady stirs controversy in Saudi Arabia. During President Obama's trip to Riyadh to pay his respects to the late Saudi King Abdullah, the First Lady did not wear a veil or headscarf, and neither did other women in the American delegation. More than 1,500 tweets using the hashtag Michelle Obama Unveiled were sent Tuesday, many of which criticized the First Lady. Some users pointed out that on a recent trip to Indonesia, Michelle had worn a headscarf. Well, next up, Lance Armstrong has been connected to doping again, but this time with a cameo in a music video. Now, the disgraced cyclist recorded a spoken interlude for Mountain Lion, the fourth video and song installment in the musical project Future User from Rage Against the Machine bassist Tim Camerford. Armstrong is a close friend and cycling buddy of Camerford and famed for his highly public doping investigation in 2012. The recordings in the background were based on real voice exchanges between the athlete and rocker. Armstrong also makes an appearance in the video. And finally, a hack attack for Taylor Swift. Well, the pop star said her Twitter and her Instagram accounts were hacked, and the rogue posts were quickly removed from the social media services. The Shake It Off singer has built a fervent following through social media and has the fourth most popular Twitter account with over 51 million followers. The Grammy winner was back to tweeting 2 hours after the purported hack, which asked users to follow 2 accounts that Twitter now lists as suspended. And that is what is trending today. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC. And in the mornings today, Break Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Mondays for Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. From all of us in Washington, have a good night. We're able to touch on things that are important to people on an everyday basis. Hello and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. In a lively half hour, news, sports, health, lifestyle information, comments from our viewers. Africa 54, the best for Africa, about Africa. Join us only on VOA.